That was awesome. So I have a ton of slides. Just follow my finger. I just go through slides very quickly. So thank you so much for the invitation. It's actually my pleasure being here. I was here 3 or 4 years ago when 3 years ago when Solar Trillions came out, and today we're basically announcing that the translation of Solar Trillions into Japanese is ready, and it's going to be up on Amazon.com and Kindle this weekend, and on Google and iPad next week, hopefully. And before I move on, I just wanted to thank the members of Silicon Valley Innovation Forum. Is anyone here? Because this book was translated in a crowdsourced way. 10 folks decided to give up some of their time and skills, and each one of them translated one chapter of my book. So thank you so much for doing that. And more than anyone, Marty, are you here? I just wanted to thank Masato Matsuo. He edited, he gave hundreds of hours of his time, and this would not have happened without you, so thank you so much. So let me start my conversation with two things. One is power costs. And I just want you to think about what you pay for costs here in California, what we pay, at least in PG&E territory, and what they pay in Japan for power. So because the rest of the presentation, I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you. So please keep these numbers in mind. In California, we pay about, in Japan, the cost of electricity for residential is about 22 cents, US cents a kilowatt hour. Somewhere between 20 and, yes? Yes, so somewhere between 20 and 25 yen per kilowatt hour. So keep that in mind, 20 plus per kilowatt hour. In California, we pay somewhere between 13 cents. 13 cents is the minimum, the baseline. And if you consume a lot, you would pay up to 30 plus cents a kilowatt hour. So just to give you an indication, so think about 20 cents a kilowatt hour across the board. So let me start with some of the myths in energy, and then tell you what I want to tell you in that way. So, all right, myth number one, solar is too expensive. Okay, myth number one, solar is too expensive. So, let me show you a recent announcement from First Solar. First Solar announced that they're building a power plant, and they're going to sell the power for 5 cents. 5.7 cents a kilowatt hour. Remember the 20 cents? 5 cents per kilowatt hour. First Solar. Palo Alto just announced that they signed a 25-year power purchase agreement for 7.7 cents a kilowatt hour. Now, if you're in the PG&E territory, the least that we pay is 13 cents. Palo Alto is going to buy at 7 cents for 25 years. Okay? Think about that for a second. In Germany, now let me remind you, Germany has less solar installation, less solar, less sun than Japan. About 10 to 15% on average. So when I give you the German numbers, remember that Japan has a little more sun than Germany. Okay. So in Germany, solar is actually driving daytime power costs down by almost 40%, down as compared to 2008. So there's an outfit that has done this analysis, and they figured that in 2012, because of this, Germany saved 5 billion euro because of solar. Now the feed-in tariff cost 2 billion euro. So net-net, Germany gained 3 billion euro last year because of solar. Okay? Next. Why is this happening? Here's one answer. Since the 70s, the cost of solar photovoltaic panels has gone down by a factor of 100x. In the late 70s, solar PV was $65 a kilowatt hour. Today, you can find it at 65 cents per kilowatt hour. In fact, you can buy it at a bit less than that. 100x. And that's why solar markets are growing exponentially. So solar is already cheaper than nuclear. In fact, if you look at the crossover, it already happened in 2009. And since then, solar has gone down, what, by 2/3? And this was before the Fukushima Daiichi disaster, in which case, nuclear is going to go up even more, right? So solar is already cheaper than nuclear. And this doesn't include the massive taxpayer subsidy that, well, guess what? We are the ones, you and me, are the ones who insure the nuclear industry. So if there's a disaster, who pays for that disaster? We do, taxpayers. Okay? That is a massive subsidy. So the German government commissioned a report to ask one question. If nuclear were insured by the market, not by the taxpayers, by the market, what would be the premium for nuclear energy? And this is the result. Oh, wait, okay, I thought that was coming. So, another myth, I'll come back to that. Another myth, solar is not ready, and solar is going to bust the grid, right? It's the end of the world as we know it, if we have too much solar. And so, the reality is that Germany already has 1 million solar installations. Did I say Germany had less sun than Japan? Okay. Now, on May 16th, 2012, solar generated 50% of all the power in all the places, in all the country of Germany. 50%. That one afternoon. Okay? And I feel fine. Nothing happened. Not the end of the world. And Germany is planning to triple solar before 2020. Okay? Triple. So another myth. Solar is, of course, a daytime only thing, right? Because the sun only shines during the day. The fact is this. This is me in Spain at the first baseload solar power plant in the world. That's 2 years ago. 24/7 solar has been here for a couple of years already. Did I say 24/7 solar? And that is a very, very cheap form of energy storage. Not for PV, but 24/7 solar is here. We're going to get here in Nevada, actually, a solar plant that is about 10 times this one, later this year. There's a little island in the South Pacific called Tokelau that went from 100% diesel to 100% solar in 1 year. 1 year, they made the transition. So when they tell you it's going to take 60 years, yes, there are little islands, but it can be done. And again, this is 24/7 solar with PV and batteries. Okay, happened in 1 year, it's done. It's a done deal. So part of what I'm telling you is this. Solar is an exponentially growing market. Solar technologies are improving exponentially. The CEO of Energy, an $8 billion a year US-based energy company, says this about solar. If you haven't paid attention in the last 3 months, you're way out of date. Things are changing by the minute in solar. Things are improving exponentially. Okay? This is the biggest, or one of the biggest game changers in energy in a generation. Okay? And they, in fact, are shifting quickly from conventional fossil-based energy to solar because of that. So let me come back to nuclear because, you know, I guess we have to talk about it, right? So nuclear. All right. Nuclear is an interesting industry. It's the only industry I know that has negative learning curve. What does that mean, negative learning curve? So the fact is that since the 70s, the unit costs of building a nuclear plant have gone up and keep going up. I mean, that's the fact. Look at the curve. It's up 10x since the 70s. Now, let me remind you this. Solar is down 100x since the 70s. Nuclear is up 10x since the 70s. What does that mean? That the ratio of solar to nuclear costs have improved by 1,000x. Does that make sense? 1,000x. You can't beat technology cost curves. You just can't. You just can't beat a 1,000x ratio. Next one, please. Citibank did a study and said, no nuclear, not going to happen. Unless you get taxpayer insurance, taxpayer loans, and subsidized power purchase agreements from the government, meaning unless the government takes all the risks and makes all the investments, and of course, unless nuclear takes all the upside, and we take the downside, that's not going to happen. So Citibank said it's not economically viable anymore to build nuclear. Is it safe? You know, I mean, we're on the hook for trillions of dollars anytime that a nuclear power plant blows up. 1.5% of all nuclear reactors to date have melted down. Now, they're going to tell you it's safe. Do you feel safe? You know, would you feel safe if I told you that the airplane that you're about to board has a 1.5% chance of blowing up? You wouldn't. Why build nuclear when it has a 1.5% chance of blowing up? This is a fact. So, what I was telling you before was that we subsidize the insurance to the nuclear industry. How much would they have to pay if the market insured nuclear? Well, the report from the German government says this: $3 per kilowatt hour. $3. Just insuring nuclear would be 15 times more expensive than the retail of power today, the cost of power today, of any power, including nuclear. $3 per kilowatt. That's amazing. Okay? But we pay for that. And the cost of a meltdown, in Germany at least, would be $8 trillion. $8 trillion. The whole GDP of Japan is not $8 trillion. And that is the cost of a nuclear plant. Do you feel safe? This is a report from the German government. So because of all these things, it's unsafe, it's economically unviable, it's too expensive, too dangerous, Europe is about to decommission pretty much all its nukes. 150 out of about 190 or so. So nuclear is obsolete. You know, it's 50s technologies that are trying to make it into the 21st century. Who would use a computer from the 50s? Anyone? No. It's obsolete. And that's why Europe is getting out of that business. And they're getting into the clean energy business. In 2011, 2/3 of all new power capacity in Europe was clean. Half of it was solar, and 20%, 21% was wind. 2/3 of all new capacity was clean. Okay, that is the way Europe is going. So, what does it all mean for Japan? Let's take a look. So Bloomberg New Energy Finance has done a study, this is from last year, in which they looked around the world at grid parity, meaning what we pay the utilities versus the cost of solar. And, you know, Germany's here, little sun. Japan has a little more sun. California is probably somewhere here. Here's Japan. What Bloomberg New Energy Finance concluded was that by 2015, 2 years, solar will be cheaper than grid in Japan. No subsidy. 2 years. Okay? So, go figure, what's the opportunity for solar when it's actually cheaper to put on your rooftop than what TEPCO and company are selling you? Right? Next. And if you look, again, go back to Germany. If you look at Germany's feed-in tariff, their feed-in tariff is about 20 yen. 20 yen. Their feed-in tariff is less than the average cost of power in Japan. Already. And part of the reason, so Germany's solar installed cost are $2, about $2 per watt. Okay? Now, the reason why, of course, capital costs are low, but the biggest single element in the cost of solar is not PV anymore. PV is not even it's not even close to being the first one. The first thing that we have to work on as we move forward is the cost of capital. Interest rates right now are more important than cost of solar PV in determining the cost of electricity for solar, right? So I did some numbers, quick numbers, and here's what I came up with. If we use Germany's $2.2 a watt, and we do 100% debt over 20 years, what would be the cost of solar installed, you know, if we vary the rates? So at 0% interest over 20 years, which 0% is pretty low, right? It's below 10 cents. Actually, it's beyond 10 yen per kilowatt hour. And at 10%, it's about 20 to 25. So even at 10%, it's still in the right range of what people are paying for in Japan. Okay? Now, can we do 1%, 0%, 2% in Japan? Let's see, what's the interest rate in Japan? Next. 0. Interest rates in Japan are 0. There's really no reason why we can't finance solar at 1 or 2%. That's way more than people are getting paid now. Does that make sense? And that'll get a 10 to 20 yen a kilowatt hour cost of electricity for solar. Okay? Now, even if we do 10%, 9%, it's going to be 2 years before solar is less expensive than grid. Which means one thing. What is the future of energy in Japan? It's the sun. Thank you.